Hey Gumbooters, and welcome back to the Gumboot Garden. We are finishing up February here, which is the busiest of the months of the year, which means that everything is ready to be harvested. I just brought in a big basket of things for fresh eating and for preserving. And I'm just starting here by dehydrating some of that chamomile so we can have some chamomile tea throughout the year. The one thing I do actually really love is in wintertime having a nice calming tea with some chamomile and some pineapple sage and peppermint. It's awesome. You probably also saw that I had a whole bowl of tomatoes set on that table. That is just like a summer staple. Now, I haven't had the huge glut of tomatoes like I did last year. That's not to say that we did not have a ton of tomatoes coming in throughout summer, because that bowl was continuously full. It's just we didn't get one huge harvest all at once. Everything that I bring in from the garden, I do weigh. Now, last year I weighed it and I tracked how much it would actually be at the grocery store. I will link that video in the description box if you are interested in seeing how much I saved from the garden last year. It's unreal. This year I did not do that, but I am keeping track of the weight of everything that I'm bringing in. Then I can see when I look back the following spring whether I would like to plant more or less of this crop. Like with zucchinis this year, we have been overrun. I mean, we have like 5 zucchinis in the fridge at the minute, and I have a freezer bags full. I've made a ton of zucchini recipes. We've just been eating heaps of zucchinis, and we have a lot. Same with tomatillos. They have grown fantastically this year. I typically plant them in one of my in-ground beds, which is a little bit clay-like. And this year I just waited a little bit longer to put them into the ground. So they were in nice potting soil for a little bit longer, and putting them into the ground, they really just took off because they were already bigger, stronger plants. And we got maybe 3 times the amount, or double the amount maybe, of tomatillos that we normally get. So I was able to make a lot of salsa verde. So next year I don't even think I need to grow tomatillos. And with that being said, I'm sure you also saw inside my freezer, which is just packed full of things that I want to freeze and put into meals later on, or things that just still need to be preserved. So I have done the tomatillos at this point because I had run completely out of freezer space, and the tomatillos were taking up a lot of that space. So I have done the salsa verde for that, which typically I don't do until midwinter when the kids are on school holidays. This is a project that Kaylin typically likes to help me with, what he calls like his thing and the sauce that he makes. However, this year I just needed to get it done. I needed to clear out some of that freezer space. So this month has been busier than normal, I'd say, because I'm not only trying to preserve all of the fresh vegetables when they come in and things that can't go into the freezer without changing texture, but also working on clearing out some of those things that I can put in the freezer, but I just don't have the space for. And I think that I've run out of freezer space this year because I have started to make more meals in batches, things that I can make multiple dinners worth in one go. I've started to do, so it has been wonderful, to be honest with you. I love having freezer meals available to just pull out of the fridge and just warm up and be ready to go, especially since I work in the evenings. So I'm not home to cook dinner. Allie's usually taking the kids to all of their sports and clubs and everything that they do. So everyone is really busy in the evenings. So it's nice to know that I can just toss something in the crock pot, or something can just be pulled out of the freezer and cooked in the oven for a little bit, and it is ready to go. And there's no prep needed. But right here, I am making some jam. So I have started by making some strawberry rhubarb jam, but I also had extra strawberries left over, so I'm going to also do strawberry jam. And strawberry jam is everyone's favorite jam that we have in the house. So I have made Cape gooseberry jam, a grape jam, peach jam, strawberry rhubarb jam, strawberry jam. I have made different jellies, honeysuckle jelly, apple butter, so many different things. Like, I have made so many different types of jams and jellies, and they will only reach for the strawberry jam. I have that video for the strawberry jam as well. I can link that down in the description box, so if you wanted to check that out after this video, you could make yourself some strawberry jam. But strawberry jam is their favorite, but I like other jams as well. Because who wants to just eat one type of jam for their entire life? Not me. The grape jam is actually my favorite, but I do enjoy the strawberry rhubarb jam, which is what I'm making at the same time as the strawberry jam. So when I first started to learn how to make jams, I 100% would not be able to keep multiple jams going at one time. But now that I have kind of learned the ins and outs and how to get it going and how to keep it all running smoothly, jam is quite an easy thing for me. So I am able to have both of them going here. But if you're new to jam making, just stick with one at a time. Then along with all of the preserving I've been doing comes the tidying up. Now, in this case, I am just drying and putting away dishes from this morning. But when you are doing all of this preserving and work in the kitchen, there are loads and loads of dishes that constantly need to be done. And frankly, we don't have a ton of big bowls and big pots and pans to use. So essentially, between every single preserving project I'm doing, I'm having to do a big load of dishes, and we don't have a dishwasher, so if you have the luxury of having a dishwasher, I honestly envy you. It would be so much easier to just kind of stack it all in the dishwasher, have those extra pots and pans, and just get on with your day and not have to do all that tidying up in between. But of course, there are the counters and things too. You need to make sure that your counters are clean, because if you don't, when making things like jam, everything will get sticky if it is stuck to, I don't know, other pots and pans, the walls, the counters, everywhere. Obviously, the neater that you are, the less this happens, but it does happen still. So tidying up is just part of your every time routine when you're doing your preserving, and also not something that we can forget about when we are trying to manage our time and figure out how long things are going to take. On this day, it was time to deal with tomatoes, and today I'm just making a big batch of sauce. So I have some fresh tomatoes and some frozen tomatoes. Because all of my determinate tomatoes died this year and didn't produce anything, I just had my indeterminate tomatoes. So all of them were coming in throughout the season and not all at once. So that's why I've had to freeze some of those in preparation to make this big batch of sauce. At the end of every summer season, I like to have 3 to 5 meals worth of sauces that I can put into the freezer. Because I add in that sausage, I will freeze my sauce. And then last year what I did, I was actually able to can crushed tomatoes and marinara sauce and salsas and all sorts of other things. This year, I had nowhere near the amount of tomatoes as I did last year, so we're just trying to get that sauce done with my garden tomatoes to put into the freezer. And then with a lot of the store-bought tomatoes, that is what I made a big batch of salsa, and that I did can, which I think you will see later on in the video. But for right now, this is just my sauce. And now my sauce I made differently this year. So this year I roasted my tomatoes, peeled the skins off, and made my sauce that way. Rather than blanching them and peeling the skins off and then de-seeding them and all of that work, I didn't really have time for that this year. And honestly, the sauce was not as good this year. So it really makes a huge difference to take all the skins off and to de-seed them. It's just so much better. I don't plan on making my sauce again like I did this year. Next round of sauce, I guess next year when it comes in, I will be doing it the proper way. Doing it the way that I did last year. Doing it the way I did in my video of Dad's sauce. So I can also put that in the description box below if you are interested in knowing how I make my sauce. I do not use a recipe. I taste it as I go along and see how it goes, but you can get the general idea of how I make my sauce. Now, my sauce is chunky. It does have sausage in it, and it does have a lot of seasonings. I love a very seasoned sauce. I love garlic. I love all of that. So there is a lot of seasoning in my sauce. So just be aware of that. You obviously don't have to put in as much seasoning as I do, but I just love it. I love a lot of flavor. And then, of course, at the end of this day comes the tidying once again. Another round of dishes. Another day, another tomato. Today we're in the kitchen making our salsa ranchera, which I can link this video down below as well if you're interested. But we are using our store-bought tomatoes today to make this salsa. Ideally, I would have loved to have had all fresh tomatoes from the garden, but when it comes to salsa, salsa is very expensive to buy from our grocery store, and tomatoes were on sale quite cheap. So I decided to buy a few kilos of tomatoes to make salsa. So although this isn't a garden fresh vegetable, it is still something that I can preserve that will save us money throughout the year, because we love having tacos and wraps and Mexican dinners, and salsa is something that we love to eat a lot of. And to be honest, my salsa ranchera is so much better than buying your basic salsa from the grocery store. It is so nice to have that fresh salsa taste rather than just more of like a tomatoey, mushy salsa that you're going to get from something that's already processed at the grocery store. So much better to buy these tomatoes. You're saving money and you're getting a fresher, nicer tasting product. So with this salsa ranchera, it is another recipe where we're starting by roasting our tomatoes. So not only do we roast our tomatoes, but we roast our onions, our garlic. I went out to the garden and brought in some beautiful peppers. We're going to roast these peppers as well. So I have decided to pull some jalapenos and some Hungarian wax from the garden that I'm going to use. I find that the jalapenos I grow have like no heat to them, or we might get one random one that does have heat, and I have no idea why. I've tried to grow a couple different varieties and I just don't think they have any heat. So our Hungarian wax peppers do have a nice kick to them. So whenever I want to use like a green pepper or like a jalapeno, I'll throw in a couple Hungarian wax peppers just to turn up the heat a little bit, and it works perfectly. I also had some cilantro growing in the greenhouse that was fresh and ready. Now, the beautiful thing about having this greenhouse I've found is not only did it really help me get my seeds started earlier this spring, but now when the sun is at its hottest, I do actually find that growing some of those things in the greenhouse protects them from the sun, like the summer sun. So that cilantro, which normally would be bolting in my garden straight away, I was able to grow in the greenhouse, and I seeded those in those pots. and let them stay in there. And I was able to cut from those pots 3 or 4 times before they now have just decided to quit on me, and I'm going to have to plant another round as soon as I get my winter garden started. This is quite a quick recipe, so I was getting the lids to my cans prepped early as well. And I do have a couple different types of lids today. So typically I buy the ball canning jar lids, but when I went to the store this last time, there weren't any left. So I had to buy these Adji lids, which in comparison to the ball jars, their seal, or the sealant that they have on there, is much thicker than what the ball jar has. And I've found that I can hear them popping to seal while they're still in the canner. Where the ball jars, a lot of times once I pull them out of the steam canner to cool down, that's when I hear them pop. So I don't know if that really means anything, but they both seem to be quite good with their sealing. I haven't had a failed seal yet with the Adji, and this is my second box that I'm on. Ball canning jars, like I said, I typically use them and they're all good. I also buy other jars besides ball mason jars. They're called Pure, P-U-R. I really like those jars, and they come with their own covers when I buy them, which I have never had a failed seal on those. However, I have not found those lids in the store to buy, only the jars with the lids themselves. So when I go to get just the lids, I either find the Adji or the ball, and both seem to be working fine for me at this point. And like I've said many times already on this video, I will link these things down in the description box. So any of those lids or jars that I use that I can find a link to on Amazon for you guys, I will put that down in the description box, so have a look for that. Like I said, I really like those Pure jars, so give those a go if you haven't tried them already. And while we're on about different products I use, I might as well let you know that steam canner that I absolutely love, it is so much easier than dealing with all of the water and the heaviness of a water bath canner. I will put that down in the description box too. That is absolutely amazing. I love it. I am so happy that I bought a steam canner rather than having to deal with submerging everything in water. So if you don't have a steam canner, give that a try as well. But getting back to this salsa ranchera. This salsa ranchera is so easy, like I mentioned before. So everything's just finished roasting in the oven. I'm just tossing it all together in a pot. We just add like salt and a lime juice while it's cooking, and then it's ready for canning. And I now have a year's worth of salsa ranchera ready to be eaten throughout the year. Not every day is a canning recipe day. Some days are just making something fresh with the vegetables from the garden, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So the kids were on school holidays at this point, and I decided to make them a nice little lunch with some baba ganoush and chips, and also some zucchini tater tots. Now, it was just small little lunches. We had to add other things to this, obviously, but just little snacky things that add up to a lunch. And I had never had either of these things before and wanted to give them a go. I know I've heard a lot of people talk about baba ganoush to help use up their eggplant from the garden. I am working on that right now, just covering it with some oil, getting ready to put it into the oven. You're supposed to let this cook and soften so it's nice and soft to put into the blender, and you will see soon that it was not soft. But while that was in the oven, I decided to take all of those leftover store-bought tomatoes that were starting to get a little bit too soft, and I knew I didn't have a time to do anything with them at this point, and just cut out the cores and put them into the freezer. So I decided to do that with the store-bought ones, and any of the tomatoes that were on the table that were getting a little bit too soft. These tomatoes were actually used later on to make some homemade chili. This was the first time that I decided to make chili, actually. I'm usually more of a pasta sauce type of girl, but the chili did turn out quite nice. I used fresh tomatoes as the base. I added beans and peppers from the garden. There was some corn. Oh, I put in some ground beef, and it turned out quite nice. There was a little bit of a spice to it. It had a nice flavor, and luckily I made enough for like 3 batches. So we had 1 batch for dinner and the others went right into the freezer, so we can have those a little bit later. But chili will be something that I need to put on my list of things to make each summer with my fresh tomatoes, because it did turn out quite nice. Oh, and I'm not partial with what tomatoes I use in my sauces and chilies and things like that. So as you can see, I not only am freezing large tomatoes, but also all of these little cherry tomatoes that we just couldn't get through. So I tossed them all into my sauces, and they all have different flavor profiles, and they all add something different to the sauces. And yeah, I'm not partial. They're all good, so they're all going to get used. I thought I still had a little bit of time before the eggplant would be ready to come out of the oven. So when I was done dealing with those tomatoes, I got started on the zucchini tater tots. Now the zucchini tater tots, a lot of times when you're cooking with zucchini or baking with zucchini, you need to shred the zucchini and then let a lot of that excess water strain out or drain out from the zucchini itself. So I shredded it all, put it into a strainer with some paper towels. You want to put paper towels both underneath it and on top of it, press down on it a little bit so that the paper towels can help soak up that extra liquid as well, and let that sit for like a half an hour. Then you'll actually squeeze that zucchini out into the sink, anything that didn't really drain out during that half an hour, and quite a bit of liquid will come out of there. So I was preparing that right now, as well as shredding some Parmesan cheese that is needed for the tater tots. Okay, and then here we have it. Our eggplant is out of the oven and it is very, very burnt. The one thing I didn't think about when I put them in there is how I had a large eggplant and then the rest were all very small eggplants. So the large ones, I think I overcooked them a little bit, but the small ones were very burnt. And there wasn't much inside them because I had burnt so much. I mean, look at this one. That was just fully burnt. But we made do with what we had. I still tried to follow through with the recipe. So I scooped all of the insides of these eggplants out into my food processor. I added in all of the other ingredients to the food processor and gave it a whirl. And I don't know. I mean, it's like hummus, but it tasted burnt because I burnt the eggplant. But I don't know. I still think that I would prefer a nice hummus. I made a zucchini hummus, and I even preferred that over this baba ganoush. Again, maybe because I burnt it, but I prefer hummus. Unless I can see, like, if you don't have chickpeas on hand and you don't have zucchini to make zucchini hummus, then baba ganoush would be a good replacement, but I prefer hummus over baba ganoush. It tastes burnt. For the record, both of the kids did still eat the baba ganoush, even though it had the burnt taste, so they didn't seem to mind. They liked it, but yeah, we also made these tater tots here. So I'm just putting all of the ingredients together in a bowl, and then we mix it all in by hand. Now, we loved these tater tots. They turned out really nice. The kids asked for more. I think I made like a double batch, but it takes a lot of zucchini. It takes a lot of ingredients for a small amount of tater tots. Because if you think about it, I mean, tater tots are very small themselves. If you're going to eat tater tots, you're probably going to have like a good amount of them. And yeah, it's just a lot of effort for a little snack, but they were good, so I probably will make them again. The kids really enjoyed them. I really enjoyed them. We dipped them in some hot sauce, some barbecue sauce, and there was some other dipping sauce that we had as well. And yeah, we really liked them. Again, I'll make them again. Okay, we're starting off this day with something easy. I have pulled out my smaller dehydrator, and we're just going to dehydrate some red pepper skins from our roasted red peppers that we did, and some other chili peppers as well that I plan on turning into chili flakes or chili powder. So I'm going to get those in the dehydrator, and then we're going to head outside for a bit. We are actually heading out into the vineyard garden, which I feel like I have spent no time in this year. The weeds are very high. I never got around to trimming these grapevines for the second year. So this year, okay, you're hearing me saying it right now. They need to be trimmed this year, and hopefully it will help bring in a better or larger grape harvest. But that's what we're out here doing now. The grapes are ready. It seems to be a little bit earlier this year, but we are bringing them in before the birds to get to them, because if I let any ripe grapes stay in the vineyard, they will be eaten that day. So actually I picked them a little bit earlier than I would like to, because otherwise I end up with none. So we're getting what we can. It's just a small harvest, but we're bringing them in before the birds get them. And I've got my trusty friend Rocco waiting out here for me, waiting very nicely as if he doesn't try to sneak out through that gate any chance he gets. Yeah, oh yeah, look at how sweet he is, the naughty little thing. But we're gonna go from here to the flowers that I have grown this year along the side fence. So I wasn't overly pleased with the flowers that grew. I do think I need to give a bit more of a variety. I planted a lot of zinnias, a lot of straw flowers. I absolutely love straw flowers. This is my first year growing them, and they are so beautiful. The zinnias I grew, I don't know. I wasn't overly keen on some of the zinnias this year. I do like the colors. I want more colors. I want some brighter colors though. There were a couple types that I'm not overly keen on, like the shape of the zinnia. I think they're called Cinderella, but I'm not 100% sure. So next year I'm going to be a little bit pickier with the flowers that I plan on growing and the colors that I choose, just because I want them to be more vibrant and stand out more when I look from the kitchen outside. I just want to see these beautiful line of flowers, which I didn't really see this year. But again, I'm new to choosing flowers like that and creating a whole area for flowers, so you have to experiment to get what you want. Yeah, so now we're back in the kitchen with another harvest. So just when you think you have finished preserving and eating everything that you've brought in from the garden, it is time to start all over again. So this time I have some pumpkins, some peppers, tomatillos, eggplant, tomatoes, you name it. It's just a little bit of everything. So I'm just back in the kitchen weighing it all out again so we can start all over. And this is how the whole summer goes. And as tired as I am now that we're coming to a close, it is absolutely beautiful and amazing throughout the summer season and thrilling. I cannot express enough how exciting it is to be bringing in so much food. And the thought that I have actually started this from seeds is amazing. This may be an ending to our summer season for this year, but I cannot wait for the next season to begin.